On December 4th, 1872, the crew of the Dei Gracia boards the Mary Celeste and finds her completely abandoned. 10 people have vanished without a trace. The ship is drifting in the Atlantic, seaworthy, stocked with 6 months of food and water. Personal belongings untouched. Yet the lifeboat is gone, and one pump lies disassembled. Every piece of evidence discovered aboard only deepens the puzzle of why they abandoned a perfectly safe ship. The ship's sails were partially set, but they and the rigging showed signs of damage. The fore and aft cargo hatches had been lifted and were lying on the deck. The ship's only lifeboat was missing, and one of its 2 pumps had been disassembled. A sounding rod lay nearby, the tool used to measure water depth in the hold. 3.5 feet of water sloshed in the ship's bottom. Though the cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was largely intact, the crew's belongings appeared untouched, and the only items missing were the ship's papers and the captain's navigational instruments. The log slate had been left behind, bearing a final entry for the morning of November the 25th. A sword was found in the captain's cabin, but no obvious signs of violence appeared anywhere on deck. This is the paradox that has haunted investigators for over 150 years. Everything points to deliberate, orderly evacuation, yet the ship carried a fortune in alcohol and had enough supplies for 6 months. Why would 10 people abandon a seaworthy vessel to take their chances in a small lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic? Picture yourself discovering that disassembled pump and sounding rod. Do you think the crew was trying to fix a leak or checking if the ship was taking on dangerous amounts of water? Drop your answer in the comments below, because the truth is, every theory about what drove them to that lifeboat has a fatal flaw. 3 weeks later, Gibraltar's Attorney General Frederick Sollyflood presents his theory to the salvage court. The crew murdered Captain Briggs and his family, then escaped in the lifeboat. He's convinced alcohol is at the bottom of it, that the crew got drunk on the cargo and turned violent. But after 3 months of investigation, the court finds no evidence of foul play. What appeared to be blood drops on a sword were actually rust stains. The insurance fraud theory collapses just as quickly. The Mary Celeste wasn't overinsured. There was no financial motive for fraud. The alcohol vapor explosion theory seems promising until you examine the details. When the Dei Gracia crew boarded, they smelled nothing, and the main hatch was still sealed. If vapors were the danger, the crew would have opened it to air out the hold. The court's inability to reach consensus fuels wild speculation on both sides of the Atlantic. In 1884, Arthur Conan Doyle publishes a fictional story that claims to be a survivor's account, thrusting the ship into public consciousness and setting off waves of speculation. His story popularizes the misspelling Mary Celeste and adds fabricated details still sometimes taken as fact. Every theory, from seaquakes to faulty pumps to alcohol fumes, explains some evidence while contradicting other facts. The mystery persists because no single explanation accounts for all the evidence. The orderly evacuation, the intact cargo, the missing lifeboat, the disassembled pump. We may never know what drove Captain Briggs to abandon ship, but the compelling puzzle of the Mary Celeste endures precisely because the evidence fits no single explanation. Subscribe for more unsolved mysteries